They won't close. You already know that one, okay? We shouldn't have to tell you that one. 96% customer satisfaction rating with 96% of the windows installed require no follow-up service. Simply put, call Window Nation at 866-90Nation or go online to windownation.com.
Welcome in on this Monday. Thanks for hanging out. We got Jackson, Lucas, and me until 1 o'clock. We got you, your phone calls, your comments on the internet if you are so inclined. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. It is Sad Boy Radio on multiple fronts, though I do not have my hat on today. The Sad Boy Radio hats are still in stock if you would like to purchase one. If you're a sad Titans fan, if you're a sad Vols fan, perhaps you're a sad Preds fan. I know they won last night in the middle of the night and nobody saw it, but they are also wildly disappointing. It's a tough sports day here locally, and we'll work our way through it over the course of the next 3 and change, but I suppose we should start with recency, with the Titans, with 23-13 in favor of the visiting Vikings fans, though it did not, it felt like a visiting stadium yesterday. I know that Titans fans are accustomed to some level of takeover from opposing fans because it's a lovely city that we live in. It's very well situated for tourism, especially on a beautiful day like yesterday where I'm frigid. I'm wearing a turtleneck, like a wool sports coat out there doing the pregame show, and I'm out there watching the Vikings fans in shorts and a T-shirt.
Oh, it's child's play for them.
Because they think it's tropical here, and there were quite a few. But the crowd is one thing. The football is another. And it's a rinse and repeat type of situation. Because, turns out the way that they lose football games on a regular basis is the way that they're probably going to continue to lose football games on a somewhat regular basis. Perhaps they sneak an odd win here or there. And I wonder what you think of people who, because I saw some while we were doing the pregame show. Blaine was of this mindset as well. He's sitting there on the pregame before we got started. He's like, I just have this weird feeling that they're going to do it today. And, I saw some comments to that effect in the F&M Bank chat when we were doing the pregame show. And, you'll hear a Titans fan every once in a while say, well, wouldn't it be the most Titans thing in the world to go out there and beat, at the time, a 7-2, now 8-2 football team? And I just don't think they've done that in like 3 years.
Yeah, when's the last time the Titans won a game that they were not supposed to win?
Miami, not this year.
Yeah,
but, they shouldn't have won in Miami this year either, but last year,
that Miami team
terrible.
Was a shell of itself. Yeah. So, December last year on Monday Night Football with the dramatic comeback late.
And so, that's like not that long ago, although, and you'll hear from Will Levis later on in the show, that is the last time that he quarterbacked this team to a win. That's December 12th, 2023. We are less than a month away from, we're more than 11 months removed from his last win quarterbacking this team, and you can tell that he's feeling it. Up on the podium. We'll play that audio for you later. But it's just one of these things where even down to the officiating, the calls in these games they're not the same calls. Like it wasn't a touchdown wiped off the board yesterday. The most egregious of them was the 4th and 7 stop. Should have been a 4th and 7 stop. The unnecessary roughness call on Mike Brown, the Titan safety. Jordan Addison was the receiver in the situation. One of the dumbest. I can't say the words that I would like to say on FM radio about what just generally the state of officiating, but officiating yesterday was awful. And you guys know I don't cape up for you that often unless you actually deserve it. You've been wronged back-to-back weeks by NFL officiating, and there's no accountability other than us requesting yet another pool report for another non-answer from a ref from a head of officials yesterday in, I believe it was Clete Blakeman.
Yep.
Who Nick Suss got the pool report from, and there's some inane answers about why they saw what they saw and why they were rectified in their decision. And no, they don't think that they made the wrong call at all. And Brian Callahan just screaming in refs' faces yesterday to the point where he also got flagged. But I don't know how you change the narrative around this other than the quarterback didn't play bad. And I wonder what the dialogue around Will Levis is going to be. I know it's still a 10-point loss, and we're having a similar conversation last week, but degree of difficulty for Will Levis yesterday, probably the highest that he's going to see. And I thought that was a pretty admirable performance from the quarterback who I, 4 weeks ago decided that I was done with and wanted traded.
Moral victory Monday? Is that what you're saying? No. Not mock draft Monday, moral victory Monday.
Do we have any sound back there that would connote moral victory, participation trophy type of stuff? I don't know. Perhaps you would have to dig deep into the library of nonsensical sounds that we have back there.
He's working on it. The Titans are in the midst of their toughest schedule run in 2024, right? When you're talking about a stretch that includes Bills, Lions, Patriots is kind of the reprieve, and there's a win. Chargers, Vikings, Texans, Commanders. That is a tough 7-game stretch where you're playing, 3 division leaders in the Texans, the Lions, and the Vikings? And Will Levis has played his best football now during that stretch, arguably in the back-to-back game stretch where he's faced the most challenging defenses that he has seen so far in his NFL career. So there is something to that he seems to have emerged from the early season disaster classes that we were seeing from number 8. And he, despite 13 points and a loss, stacked a good performance onto another one where I would argue, this was a better performance on Sunday than what he did in LA against the Chargers.
He would argue.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
That was my fault, Jackson. I told you to do it when he's done talking, then I forgot that I told you that. But that was good.
Great
Moral
work
victory.
by us.
Moral victory. Moral victory Monday sound. He would argue that it was a lesser performance than in Los Angeles, or at least that's what he was saying at the podium last night. And of course, we will get to that here in just a little bit. It is still rinse repeat, though. There are moments where there is good football mixed in. They were both asked at the podium, Callahan and Levis, in our press conferences with the two of them, if this one felt any different than the last ones, because, I would argue that there was a level of fight or a level of competency that they have fleeting. It was fleeting, and the defense didn't do much nobody's stopping Justin Jefferson these days, but defense didn't really do too much to force the issue, though there was a turnover that was created. They did have moments where they kept themselves in the game, but I don't know. I don't know how much moral victory Monday to do here, because if it still results in a double-digit loss, then what kind of moral victory are you actually talking about? And what is being indicated is that the fan base is not interested in moral victories, as evidenced by the crowd at Nissan Stadium yesterday, where I would argue that there was maybe 30% Titans fans.
Well, you're also in a part of your season at 2-8 where a significant portion of the fan base is just not interested in victories in general, right? They want a number 1, a number 2, a number 3 pick. And at the moment, the Titans have the number 2 pick in the draft as we sit getting ready to wrap up week 11 with Texans and Cowboys on Monday Night Football.
Who has the number 1?
The Jacksonville Jaguars.
That's right. AFC South, baby.
Perpetually. My goodness. How many number 1 picks is Trent Baalke going to get as the general manager of the Jaguars? Or are they just going to clean house over there? My goodness.
We may have some news throughout the course of the show. Maybe our luck, it'll be right as soon as we walk out of here. Although you are Zach Lyons.
I am Zach Lyons without the glasses this week. I'll be with Blaine Bishop from 1 to 3
I don't know
every
if glasses
day
would
this
be
week.
an improvement on you or not.
I have blue light glasses at home. I think they make me look distinguished.
I think you should wear them all week.
Okay. How weird, though, that the Titans, who, by the way, scored their lowest point total of the season yesterday.
No.
Yes.
No.
Oh, no, 10 in Buffalo. My fault. Their second lowest point total of the season yesterday. And is this the best we have felt the Monday after a loss this season?
Oh, my God, don't do that. I mean, I know that's what we're essentially doing this segment.
That is what we're doing this segment. It is, because
you're going to make me be the bad guy here?
You felt like a lot of it had to do with officiating. We're saying Levis had his best performance. The fight, all the moral victory stuff that goes into losing by 10 to a Super Bowl contender in Minnesota. Isn't that weird? They scored 13, second lowest point total of the year, and Monday after the game, we're saying, hey, not bad.
Yeah, I think that's on us. I just think that we have sunken so low in what passes the barometer for feel good around football, especially coming off a game like the Vols experienced. I'm sure we'll get to that at some point today. They also lose in Athens, Georgia, which was the expectation based on the Vegas point totals. And Turns out Vegas knew more than the rest of us, even though we were all screaming that Vegas knows nothing, making Georgia a 10-point favorite at home, where Tennessee doesn't even cover that. So there are a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions tied up in local football that are not necessarily good feelings at this point. Is this the best? What a terrible question. I almost cussed. Is this the best that I have felt about them in a loss where they didn't even manage to score the dreaded 17 that I see in my nightmares at this point in time, except there's no more dreams anymore. It's just nightmares, and it's just the number 17 floating around with my eyes closed at this point.
I'm in danger.
No, it's not even danger. Like, at least Minnesota fans get to feel a little danger, right? I went to get my morning coffee before I did the pregame show, and the farmers market I don't want to give away my coffee spot, but local business, support them. Farm City Coffee, shout out. It's in the Nashville Farmers Market in Germantown. It's close to the house. It's close to the stadium. It's on my way, my 8-minute drive from home to the stadium. And it's, 8:40. I was pushing it yesterday. 8:40 at the Farmers Market. We're on the show at 9 for the Lee Company Countdown to Kickoff. Lucas, I swear to God, there was 500 Vikings fans in the Farmers Market on their way to tailgate before that game. And they were talking to me in line about how they I don't know, maybe you guys might get one this week, like trying to make me feel better about it. I'm like, didn't you almost just lose to the Jags? Leave me alone.
They must have seen you in your Titans blue hoodie that you're currently wearing and said, here's a Titans fan. I want to make him feel a little better.
I really am pissed at the Johnny O people. They didn't have a single other color but this blue. And it's a shame that it's a shame that the Titans colors are blue because I look great in it. And anyway. What, the Johnny O?
No, just saying I look good in blue.
I
That's
look
a fine.
phenomenal in blue. Are you kidding me? Especially this light blue. It's a shame. But
you make for a great Titans fan.
It's neither here nor there. You don't want me as a Titans fan. I would be so much meaner about these things if I was actually a Titans fan. Coming up next, stock up, stock down. We'll do it after every game, and that trend continues. Coming up next. Well, this is fitting today. Welcome back to the show. Hell, if you ask Jeffrey Simmons to hear Jeff tell it, Titans are cursed when it comes to officiating. That is specifically. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken, which, by the way, was delightful to see some of you at Hattie B's in Franklin. Thanks for coming up and saying hi, hanging out. Always good to be out at Hattie B's. I cheated yesterday. I texted Nick Bishop Jr., and I said, can I mobile order from the Hattie B's app from the stadium Hattie B's? Is that a possibility here? And he said, no, but I'll get you a chicken sandwich. So I went down and got a chicken sandwich at halftime instead of eating press box chicken tenders. I cheated yesterday. Shout out Hattie B's in Nissan Stadium. A great reason to go to a Titans game if no other reason exists.
How is that cheating? You chose Hattie B's. You chose good food. I don't understand why.
Well, I cheated the line because I took advantage of our dear friends at Hattie B's, and I said I would like a chicken sandwich and some fried pickles and maybe even some tater tots. And I snuck around back, and I took said chicken sandwich back up to the press box, and I was the envy of the press box. That's a fine. Should be anyway. 615-737-1045 is the number. So stock up, stock down? We're going to do a little stock up, stock down here? Are you prepared? You don't look prepared. Yes, you holding a one finger up at me is the definition of being prepared, knowing damn well that we were going into this segment. Well done by you.
I can never find that button. It's hidden.
You should probably move it then to where you can find it.
Yes. That's next on the list of to-do.
Okay. Maybe in the next 6 months of your production, work with us.
You scoffed. You laughed at me last week when I tried to give stock up to Will Levis, even with an asterisk, because I acknowledged he was better. He made progress. You refused to see it. Will Levis, stock up this week, unquestionably. He took another step. He did make progress, and he arguably played his better football yesterday when he was facing pressure from the Vikings and that Brian Flores defense. So stock up, Will Levis. Will you acknowledge the progress from number 8 this time around?
So you asked me a question. Yes, I will. I'm willing to acknowledge it, and I will explain why here in just a second. But I looked at this situation yesterday, and you asked me a question, and Jackson also said something to that effect during the break about this being the best that watching a Titans loss has felt. And I just believe that that's because there were 3 definitive moments in this game that Titans fans and anybody watching them had a legit reason to stand up and say, wow, look at that, where there have been precious few of those at any point, other than if you're standing up and screaming in cursed agony because Will Levis has thrown the ball to the other team or the Bears pick 6 or whatever the case may be, what have you. Nick Westbrook, I did not have on my bingo card Will Levis having the longest touchdown completion of the season in the NFL with a 98-yarder.
Of the Titans era as well.
No, tied.
Of the Titans era.
Oh, yes,
it is
the
Titans
era.
In franchise history, it is tied with a play that happened in 1962.
That is right. It's Duval, except it's spelled weird. The last name
it's a wild spelling.
I had to double check it a couple of times to make sure that I got it right. Either way. So, yes, stock up Will Levis. I will grant you that. Will Levis, in the postgame, asked about specifically his performance against the Minnesota Vikings, a defense that we all know to be excellent, and a well-played game, again, in a 10-point loss by Will Levis. This was the Titans quarterback at the podium.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I feel like last week in terms of just how I threw the ball, I was more accurate, and I made some better decisions here and there, but I was a little frustrated with a couple of the balls that I'm going to be watching on tape, but I just all I want to do is win, man. There's nothing else matters, and it's been frustrating, it's been tough, but I mean, I haven't won a game this year. I'm chasing that feeling, and I'm doing everything I can to get there.
So not quite a full-on voice crack the way that Brian Callahan had after the Patriots win, where he desperately needed a win. They desperately needed a win, and that emotion was visible on his face. Will Levis comported himself without, not breaking down, but just getting a little choked up. He got choked up there because he's right. We've talked about this. He hasn't quarterbacked a team to a win in a football game since early December of last year. So that wears on everybody, certainly him at this point. I will grant you a slight stock up, but I will give you slight because there are still some questions as to his ability and taking sacks that did not substantially improve yesterday, that does set them back considerably as an offense. I'm not saying that the officiating didn't count. I'm not saying that Nick Petit-Frere did his job yesterday. I saw Austin Stanley post a clip of him saying that NPF should be cut, and I do not disagree with him. I think that as soon as Jalen Duncan is available off injured reserve, I think you kick that guy to the curb so fast.
Yeah, at every turn, while we're there, stock down NPF. At every turn, whatever option you have not named NPF has been better than NPF. And that's understanding just how low of a bar we're talking about there with how poor right tackle play has been for this team all year long. Isaiah Prince comes in, and apart from the penalties, which were a big problem yesterday, in terms of the run of play and the snaps that he put out, you weren't good at right tackle, but it was better than what you've been getting with Nicholas Petit-Frere. So I agree with you. I see no reason moving forward here.
So yeah, that would be my first and foremost stock down. In fact, I will pull the pressure grades for NPF in this specific game according to Pro Football Focus, because they were just, I mean, it's not just him though, because they put in Isaiah Prince, the practice squad guy that they had as a game day call up yesterday, and he, for the life of him, couldn't figure out the illegal. I don't think that they've had. I wonder if Brian Callahan would be asked this question today. I don't think they've had one of those illegal procedure penalties on a tackle this year.
Remember when that happened? Wasn't it week 1? Was it Ronnie Stanley? Ravens Chiefs week 1? It just over and over and over again. It kept happening. And I remember thinking, this is so strange. I've never seen this penalty called this many times on one player in a game. And it just kept happening to Isaiah Prince. And by the letter of the law, was he lined up illegally? I guess so. But it was one of those that you look at from a non-football mind, just looking at it when they would show it, you'd say, it doesn't look bad. It doesn't look odd the way he was lined up, to me at least, on that touchdown to Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, so I'm sticking with Levis a little longer than I should with this, because I do acknowledge that was a degree of difficulty. He deserves credit if we're going to look at this guy and be critical of him the way that we have been consistently, and that has been earned, by the way. Then he should also earn some acknowledgement when he does take a step. Incremental steps do matter here, but it's tough for me to justify it in a 10-point loss where he's not outright the problem again yesterday, but he does things that do contribute to the problems that they have. NPF, though, let's see how many pass block snaps NPF had yesterday. I don't have that according to Pro Football Focus, but I do have him giving up 3 pressures, a quarterback hit, 2 sacks of the 4 sacks that Pro Football Focus has the Titans giving up yesterday. Peter Skoronski had 2 pressures that he allowed in this game as well, and is also credited with giving up a sack. But NPF consistently worse. That's the thing that we were talking about in pregame with Brad and with Blaine. The idea of he talks a lot about his mentality, the aggression, all these different things. Like that's not something that you can create. You can be as technically sound as humanly possible. You can improve your technique. You can put yourself in better positions to succeed, even if you don't have, quote unquote, that dog or that dude or whatever other dumb term you want to throw at these things to describe a level of just competitor that you look for a professional athlete to have. And there is no question that he has been a competitor at various times in his career. He played college football at Ohio State. It's not like this dude is just some bum. He's one of the most talented recruits.
He was a 5-star prospect
in his high school class. Like, he has been at the top of these things his entire career, and then all of a sudden he gets here, and there's no question he's got talent. It's just one of those things. But he just doesn't have it. He doesn't have it. I was going back and forth. I can't remember who I was going back and forth with yesterday over text about who is the worst Titans tackle to put on that uniform between Dillard and NPF. Not even Daly. I think Daly, because the competitiveness, the lack of competitiveness with Dillard and with NPF is just so stark.
And Dillard is a similar conversation, right? All the talent. A first-round pick.
Oh, yeah.
A first-round draft pick. who has just been a turnstile in his career. So
I think Dillard is worse because they gave him $29 million.
I think so too.
Or he didn't get all of that money, but still, they gave him a contract that could have been worth $29 million, and NPF is still on a rookie deal. But yeah, stock down. For NPF, stock up. As always, the only person who I feel good about on a week-to-week basis, no matter what he's doing, even if he's not getting snaps, that is Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. 98-yard touchdown reception yesterday. 40 of those. I think he caught the ball around the 41, the 42, maybe. So 40 air yards on the pass from Levis on a 3rd and 10, backed up to their own 2, where Levis is having to sneak it on 2nd down just to get away from the end zone so they don't take a safety. They throw the bomb. NWI beats the defensive back. He's running free in the secondary. He's pulling away from the secondary. He's the only consistent playmaker on a week-to-week basis, not named Tony Pollard. He is the player on the football team that I feel the best about. NWI on a week-to-week basis, and I think that they should have to submit a public apology for him not getting snaps, not getting targets until like week 4 of the NFL season. I think that they should make their apology in the form of a contract extension for NWI, that they should insult him by giving Treylon Burks snaps over him just because the staff is looking at the measurables of Treylon Burks and the measurables of Nick Petit-Frere and making some of their personnel decisions coming into the year based on that. I know who I said, Jackson. I'm talking about a different thing, but I appreciate the feedback in my ear. I think that this situation is something that NWI continues to be a player for this team. I know that Titans fans have tried to run him off at various points, and yet all he does is catch touchdowns and be reliable. I know he had one that he could have caught earlier in the game that felt like something that he typically comes up with, but that's just because our expectation for him is so much higher than anybody else on the team. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, the most underpaid, the most underrated, the most undervalued, and he just goes out there, Honda Accords his way to another good performance from Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. I looked up at one point, and he was leading all receivers on a team that included, or on a field that included, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. That is quality. And if they don't pay to keep him this offseason, I know he signed another 1-year deal this past year. If they don't extend him this offseason, we'll riot.
He did lead all receivers with his 117 yards on 2 catches. He's already got a career high in touchdowns this year with his 5. All have come in the last 6. He's got a career high in yards per catch at over 17 per, and he's got 256 yards, so on pace to break through his career high in receiving yards, which came in his 2nd year as a pro when he had 476 back in 2021. So he's been doing this. I mean, this is year 4 of Nick Westbrook-Ikhine being consistent and being reliable in a time where not that many Titans receivers have been. And being available, by the way. I mean, that's a huge part of this, too. Has Nick missed a game this season? He's played in 10. So he has missed 1, but I don't know if it was...
He hasn't missed one.
Oh, no, he's played in 10. They're 2-8. What am I saying? Yes. So he's played in every game this year.
Yeah.
Played in 14 last year, 17 in 2022, and 16 in 2021. And I believe 21 was the last time we did a 16-game regular season. So the guy doesn't miss games. He's just available, reliable, and productive. Bring back Nick Westbrook-Ikhine.
Who's your next stock down candidate?
Red zone defense. Just as a whole, the Titans, where do you think the Titans rank now in red zone defense in the NFL?
Where were they last week? Did we talk about this? I want to say they were somewhere in like the 27 to 29 range.
They were 26 last week. They're 27 this week.
Okay.
So they got worse by about 2 percentage points. They went 2 for 2 in terms of the Vikings, went 2 for 2 in the red zone. And I get there's an asterisk on that this week because of the Mike Brown play. They had the Vikings facing 4th down twice.
Justice for Mike Brown.
And the Devondre Sweat offside, the right call, right? He lines up offside. And
listen, I know people don't want to hear it, but you put the officials in a position to make a call against you because Devondre Sweat made a bad play.
Yeah, sure. And they got to stop on that play. Like Sam Darnold did not have that first down. Titans would have had the ball turnover on downs. They stepped up again to get a stop, and that was the bad call by Mike Brown. So I almost feel bad against Mike Brown. Yeah, so I almost feel bad putting red zone defense as a stock down here, but 2 for 2 again. And I know that the Vikings got bailed out in a big way with the officiating there. But yeah, 27th in the NFL in red zone defense around week 11.
My last stock up candidate will be Calvin Ridley, who continues to produce. That has been one of the few positives that you can pull from the Titans at 2-8, that they have figured out how to get him involved, that he is making plays that affect the game. 4 catches on 6 targets yesterday, 58 yards. He had the 51-yard touchdown wiped off the board due to the illegal procedure penalty, one of 3 that I believe was called on Isaiah Prince yesterday. I feel good about Calvin Ridley. I feel much better about Calvin Ridley, and then he continues to do it on a regular basis. I know he's got to be frustrated by the fact that he is making meaningful strides, but that it's not translating to wins for the team. He's just got to keep chipping away at it. I know that can be irritating and disheartening, but to his credit, it hasn't. The Detroit performance was one thing that was a bit of an anomaly, but it's held steady, and that's what I'm looking for from Calvin Ridley. I just need somebody, not named Nick Westbrook-Akina or Tony Pollard on this damn offense, to be steady. Actually, J.C. Latham should deserve some credit for that,
Absolutely. J.C. Latham just continues to play good football. Speaking of that Detroit game, you know what we're not talking about today? Special teams.
I was going to make that a stock up, and then I was like, I don't think I should.
We're just not talking about it, and that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. I will stock up. No discourse today around.
No discourse around special teams.
I'm not going to give them credit. I don't want to at all.
It has been several weeks since we could sit here on Monday and special teams not be a major part of the story. And I know Stonehouse had one uncharacteristically bad punt in that game on Sunday, but they only allowed 17 punt return yards on 2 returns. And there was one 35-yard kick return by Ty Chandler. But apart from that, special teams had one of its best days of the year. Nick Folk continues to be very, very good.
Stock down, unfortunately, and it's not because of anything that he did, obviously, but Jack Gibbons. That's a really tough thing.
Stock down linebacker depth.
The linebacker depth is the way that should be phrased, not Jack Gibbons. It's unfortunate that Jack Gibbons sustained a season-ending injury. The way that Jeff went down to a knee after Jack Gibbons snapped his ankle, I thought Jeff was also hurt. He was just shocked by the injury, and that's always an awful thing to see. They had the air cast out there for him immediately.
Yeah.
Somebody who's put in good work, who'd been playing at a reasonably high level, just trying to continue to earn a spot either as a starter or as a depth guy. He's been a good soldier on all of this, and just a shame to see that end for Jack Gibbons this season the way that it did. 615-737-1045 is the number if you would like to get involved with everything that we've got going on here today. A quick reminder that Toy Field is right around the corner. We are going to be out at Nissan Stadium on December the 10th, benefiting Salvation Army's Forgotten Angels. Middle Tennesseans are invited, or if you're anywhere within the sound of our voice, we would love to see you at Nissan Stadium. We won't just make it Middle Tennesseans, but you're invited to stop by between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. All 4 shows will be broadcasting live out at Nissan Stadium that day and help fulfill the dreams of thousands of kids this holiday season at the 17th Annual Toy Field Drive presented by First Horizon Bank. So bring some toys to donate, to contribute to Toy Field, and we'll look forward to seeing you on December 10th. To the phones. Let's go to Jason up first this morning.
Hey, guys. Good morning.
Yo.
Hey, first off, I want to say thanks for you guys coming out to Cat 10. It's got nice to see you guys. I got my voice back.
Yeah.
I'm glad y'all came out there and checked out the bar for us. And also, I just want to say the stock up for sure for Will Levis. I believe that was a stock up, just like you said, slightly, because he still only got 13 points, but he did a better job keeping offense. And my stock up was the defense. They gave up 23 points, but they laid the wood on some of those hits. They were really coming after them for the Vikings. They're a hard team to face. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for coming out, and hopefully I'll get maybe Ramon, Kayla, and Will come out there too.
Thanks for the call, Jason. Lucas has no idea what Jason is talking about because he was not at the bar on Broadway with Bert and I on, what was that, Saturday night?
Okay.
Yeah, we went to a bar on Broadway. It's been the first time in like 2 years I've been out on Broadway at night. So it was good to see Jason.
Nice.
And a good spot. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I was in a soft room surrounded by loved ones on Saturday night.
Speaking of which, the Vols lose. We'll talk about it coming up next. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken, so morale not high on a Monday where the Titans lose. The Preds did win last night in the middle of the night. I don't know how many people were awake to see it, though. They're still trying to. I mean, Lucas and I were talking about this, I think, before the show started. They are the most disappointing team in hockey this year.
Got to be up there for sure. I mean, talking about a last place team right now that had as splashy an offseason as anybody in the National Hockey League. Steven Stamkos, ripped a couple last night, had a 2-goal performance in a win over Vancouver, the team that knocked you out of the playoffs last year. But yeah, it's for the most part, it's been very disappointing, especially at even strength.
So I don't know that Tennessee's 31-17 loss to Georgia on Saturday night in Athens is going to keep them out of the playoff necessarily, but this is kind of the outcome that you were having to protect yourself against. I think a lot of Vols fans, I don't know, maybe some Vols fans had grown in confidence because we paraded a handful of people associated with Georgia, and everybody but Ben Jones said, "Yeah, no, this is not a gimme for Georgia." Like Ben Jones was really the only person I heard kind of chesty about Georgia's opportunities to handle business, backed up against a wall the way that they were coming off that Ole Miss game. So Tennessee now falls to 8-2. The losses at Arkansas and at Georgia. College football playoff rankings will not come out until tomorrow, and we will discuss ahead of those rankings release what we think that might look like and how much things like, for example, BYU are impacted, Indiana on an off week is impacted, and all these other things. But apparently how are you two? Are you well? Are you mentally stable? I know Lucas was
doing all right.
I mean, you're comporting yourself. You're like Will Levis. I felt like there might have been a voice crack at something or something like that in front of the microphone today, but you're handling it.
I was hearing plenty of BVS yesterday. We'll talk about that because we're going to talk about the college football playoff picture, and that's where the BVS was rooted that I heard yesterday. But in terms of this game, Ben Jones' whole thing on Friday with us was this Georgia offensive line is the same offensive line that bullied Tennessee up front last year, facing largely the same front that Tennessee had last year. Now, Tennessee's front, much improved this season. There's no doubt about that. And a big part of that is Rodney Garner as the defensive line coach. That group is a year older and a year better. But that held true on Saturday. Georgia's offensive line had its best performance of the season. They righted the ship in the way they were able to run the ball, and it's not that they lit it up. Tennessee was better than Georgia in the run game, but Georgia was just able to stay ahead of the chains enough and then max protect Carson Beck enough. Beck had his best performance of the season, 25 of 40, 347, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, and Tennessee's front was just stifled. They were just smothered. The whole game could not even bother Carson Beck in the pocket. That's the biggest reason for Georgia finally clicking on offense. Just some uncharacteristic things that we hadn't seen yet from this Tennessee defense. When you look at these scoring drives for Georgia, the backbreaker at the end of the game, a 92-yard drive, 12 plays, over 8 minutes off the clock to score and make it 31-17 ball game. Tennessee just couldn't affect Beck in the pocket. So that's the biggest reason for the loss for me. Nico played well. Tennessee got off to a good start, but they were shut out in the second half. It's kind of flipped the script on what we've been talking about with this team with the poor starts in the second half performances. Looked early like Tennessee was gonna have a complete 4-quarter game, and it was just more of the same from Georgia, unable to move the ball. But after that 10-0 lead, Georgia became Georgia again. Up front, using the tight ends in the passing game. And it turns out Carson Beck just needed just somewhat of a run game and time to throw the football.
I'm gonna work around this today. So what was the deal with the BVS that you experienced coming into work?
So I walked in yesterday
because I'm gonna try and be measured today in the way that I handle Vols fans, because I know many of you want to blame the officiating, and I'm not going to put up with that today.
Oh no, the officiating was horrendous, but we can't sit here and act like that was one of the 5 biggest reasons Tennessee lost that game.
You know what I read on an outlet that I take a paycheck from in A to Z Sports this morning? ESPN and the SEC had a clear agenda in Athens against the Tennessee Vols, and there's plenty of proof. Zach Reagan, I like you. That's nonsense. Shut up about it.
Yeah.
Please.
People seem to be really upset about Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit on the call.
A clear agenda against the Tennessee Vols, and there's plenty of proof. I threw up in my mouth.
Yeah, I'll always dismiss that stuff. But this idea that like ESPN doesn't want Tennessee in the playoff has always been so hilarious to me. Like, why? Because millions more people will watch. Like, why you don't want that entire that there's no logic. We can dismiss that pretty easily.
Okay.
But walking into my Titans radio duties, which I do here in the studio on every game day, Joseph Bonanno is the Titans radio network producer, and we're chit-chatting right before Titans Countdown starts, and the BVS was full-blown with Joseph. Oh, we're not going to make the playoff.
Curled up into a ball in the studio.
We're not going to make the playoff. We're out. We're done. That's it. I mean, he was beside himself. This is a 2-loss Tennessee team that fell to number 10 in the AP poll. We'll see where they fall in the college football playoff rankings. But when you look at Ole Miss, Bama, Georgia, and Tennessee, 4 SEC teams, each with 2 losses, you could rank those 1 through 4 with any variance. Any variance, and you can make a good argument for any one. Tennessee at 4, Tennessee at 1, at 2, at 3, whatever. So to act like in as topsy-turvy a season as we've had in college football, that this is it, nail in the coffin, Tennessee done and dusted. They don't want the Vols in the playoff. And Joseph's in the F&M Bank chat. He says, I have since calmed down after 2 nights of sleep. I apologize for my actions. I'm not used to success. Okay. Hey, you know what? Credit to Joseph Bonanno.
He texted you that?
No, he's in the F&M Bank chat. He said, I apologize for my actions. I'm not used to success. Okay, Joseph, I tip my hat to you.
No.
Everybody,
No.
What? No.
Don't give him grace.
Not after the fact. You know what? No, he's only apologizing because he's getting publicly shamed. That's the only, and which, by the way, is why public shame is the only tool that still works on a regular basis for everybody except Jackson, as far as I can tell. I'll get to you later.
But here, this lays out my point. Henry on the F&M Bank chat. Ole Miss is unquestionably the best football team in the SEC right now. There is no such thing as unquestionably, right? You could say that about Ole Miss. They have the worst loss of those 4, and it's not close. At home to a Kentucky team that could probably going to be 4-8 by the end of the year. That doesn't look like a team that could even beat Louisville in the regular season finale. You could say Georgia's the best team in the league. You could say Texas, Alabama. You can make an argument for anybody. So to act like Tennessee's done and dusted because they have their second loss, to act like there's no way the SEC is going to get 5 teams in the playoff is ignorant. It's crazy. Plenty more is going to happen. Do they control their own destiny at this point? No. Could they use a little help? Yeah, probably. But to act like it's all over, no. I think that's insane.
There's a lot of coping from Vols fans over the weekend. You know I love you. You know, I think you're crazy. You need to get a handle on yourselves. All right. Like it was, and it's not all of you, right? Like it's very condensed to, I'm sure it's a couple, maybe 10,000 or so on the internet or something like that are going through it out of many, many millions of people that are Tennessee Vols fans or alums or whatever. But those of you who are spiraling, like, get a hold of yourself. Like, I just want to grab those people by the shoulders and shake them and shoot.
It's going to be okay.
You can do that. Joseph will be here around 12.
Well, there's probably HR reasons that I can't. I'll just yell at him, which will make me feel better. And probably
are you going to call him Lizard Boy again?
No, the Lizard Boy thing is, I honestly was more angry about the lizard than I am about his whining and moaning about, oh my God, what's going to happen to Tennessee? What's going to happen to the college football playoff? They're going to take it away from us. Shut up. God.
You do sound like somebody that's never been a football fan in your life, though.
Well, sure.
Because there is a little bit of concern.
I got a basketball team that makes me miserable on a regular basis.
Wait till Ohio State hangs 40 on your Hoosiers this Saturday.
Oh, please. That's what plenty of Vols fans were sending back to me. Joke's on them. I've got a 10-win football team for the first time in my lifetime. I'm just happy to be here. You can't hurt me. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to get involved there. Quarterback vibe check. We told you we're going to do it every Monday after a Titans game at 11 a.m. We'll find out what the vibes are around Will Levis coming up next.
It is 11 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans fell to the Minnesota Vikings at home on Sunday, 23-13. Will Levis, 17 of 31 for 295 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, including a 98-yard touchdown to Nick Westbrook-Akine in the third quarter, tying the longest pass play in franchise history. Titans could only run for 33 yards on Sunday. Levis was sacked 5 times as they fall to 2-8. Brian Callahan meets with the media today, coming up at 12:45. Over the college football weekend, Tennessee was shut out in the second half and lost at Georgia 31-17 despite holding a 10-0 lead early. It's the Vols' second loss of the season. College football playoff rankings come out again on Tuesday night. The Nashville Predators got a win last night at the Canucks 5-3. Steven Stamkos with 2 goals. The Preds improve to 6-10-3. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour is upon us on this Monday. Thanks for stopping by, hanging out, tuning in wherever you are spending your time with us. We're appreciative of you doing so. Vols lose, Titans lose. Preds did win last night, but, you know, if we're talking about moral victories for the Titans today, it feels like that was a bit of a moral victory right now for a Preds team that has been wildly disappointing to start the season. And we're trying to figure out all the different consequences of the losing across the board, specific to the 2 football teams today. The Titans, though, are where we will land next as a part of our conversation before we pivot back to college football talk. Every Monday in the 11 o'clock segment, we said that we're going to give you a vibe check on the quarterback. The quarterback situation for the Titans, of course, is what we will focus on as we have continued to do so. And for Will Levis yesterday, it seems like the emotions are a bit mixed. Feels like, I think more people than not are willing to say, yeah, he did some good things yesterday. Like, willing to grant him progress, despite it being, you know, kind of a similar conversation to last week, right? He made progress, but they still lost by double digits. Well, the same thing happened yesterday. He made progress, but they still lost by double digits. And there are some things that he does there that, you know, he's not a perfect quarterback. Certainly, far from it at this stage of his career. But what are the vibes around Will Levis, and have they changed at all? Are many of you, or are some of you, is there a portion of you, a percentage of you out there, whomever you might be, who are willing to look at that performance yesterday and say, okay, could you change potentially a narrative around Will Levis with continued incremental progress that way to the point where it looks, you know, something like a well-rounded quarterback at the position? Because that's what yesterday felt like a step in the right direction of. He helped keep them competitive. Ultimately, they fell short for a variety of different reasons, and some due to officiating, which we have not yet honed in on so hard just yet, but we will. Don't worry. That's for the noon hour. Will Levis has the opportunity to change people's minds about him, right? That's what it is on a week-by-week basis. And my position for damn near 2 months has been, well, I don't trust him, but he's welcome to earn that back at any point. Like, I'm not completely out on Will Levis if he gives me reason not to be. And I kind of feel like through 2 games, like he's giving me reasons to start to regain trust. I'm not going to outright give the trust to him just on a week-by-week basis. But as far as his decision-making, his accuracy, his poise in these circumstances, especially facing the degree of difficulty that he did yesterday, and the Vikings are the toughest defense in the NFL across many different metrics for a variety of reasons. They're the most efficient defense in the NFL, certainly. He didn't break through. He could have had a north of 300-yard performance had the illegal procedure penalties. And by the way, I did get confirmation the Titans have not had a single illegal procedural penalty on a tackle this year like that until Isaiah Prince got 3 yesterday.
And he had hardly played this year.
Yeah, but he got warned once, and then it kept happening. Yeah. So, like, you know, I'm not. Isaiah Prince has played football before. I know it's different this year with that rule specifically. They're emphasizing that rule specifically.
No, I'm saying, you know, that clearly it was an Isaiah Prince issue.
Oh yeah,
right?
Okay.
But he hadn't played a lot of football. They haven't had any of those penalties. And then when he gets the most snaps in a game that he's gotten this year, they have multiple.
Okay, fair. But for Will Levis, I am willing to acknowledge that yesterday I said, okay, I'm willing to, move in the direction of he's earning trust back. I think he is starting to earn trust back. Doesn't have to be 100%. You don't have to veer to extremes or overcorrect. But the vibes around him are, okay. Last week, meh. This week,
Yeah, hey, that's a tick up. It's just one step in the right direction. And the thing is, too, I know all we've talked about this year is 2024 is about finding out about Will Levis. Is he the guy? What do you have in Will Levis? Levis is under contract next year.
Oh, for 2 seasons.
Right, and the year after that.
Yeah.
So they could address the quarterback position and keep Will Levis on the roster.
Oh, sure.
Right? So even if there's enough progress, because and this is on us as well. It's easy to listen to us as though we're talking like, well, no, if he's not the guy, he will not be here next year. Whereas there is a world that Levis shows enough progress to where they keep him around and still bring in a veteran, maybe even still draft a young prospect. Like you can address the quarterback position and keep Will Levis, especially if nobody's wanting to give up draft capital for him.
So he wasn't benched, right? Because I was looking for a list of quarterbacks who had been benched in this season, and Will Levis made an appearance, and he wasn't benched. He was hurt. So I think that was a misunderstanding by the people putting together said list.
2 other people in his draft class were Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson played the best football game of his NFL career on Sunday after being benched.
Shout out the Jets.
Bryce Young, understanding it's a low bar, has played the best football of his young NFL career since being benched. You scoffed a lot at the idea of perspective on the sideline. I think it's helping Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson because they came off after being benched for multiple games.
I don't remember scoffing.
And have played good football. Yeah, you kind of like rolled your eyes and like,
That's
okay, well, perspective.
Now who's moving the goalpost? A scoff became an eye roll.
Semantics. Levis was not benched, you're right, but he was on the sideline for multiple Mason Rudolph games, and he is playing. This is the best back-to-back game stretch that we've seen from Levis so far.
Yeah, and that matters, even if you still don't want to be in on him as your quarterback for not just present but future. Like those things can still matter. You can have proper perspective around the quarterback situation. We played for you some audio of Will Levis earlier. Let's hear from Brian Callahan on Will Levis because I thought that he did a pretty good job describing the progress that the quarterback was able to make yesterday. This was Brian Callahan at the podium.
Yeah, I thought Will did a really nice job today. That part was encouraging. I thought he stood in the pocket, played tough. He was accurate. There's going to be things that we need to clean up, but managing that game against that defense, the complexity of it, all the things that we have in our plan that you have to handle all the things that they do. I thought he did a really nice job. I thought that was another positive step for Will, and proud of the way he played. He fought, he battled, he stood in there and took a few and delivered some really nice throws. And I wish there was more to show for it.
I wish there was more to show for it, which is kind of what I'm getting at. It can be progress and still not be good enough, right? The bar needs to be higher for him, and he is getting closer to achieving that bar. But it's progress, and progress deserves to be acknowledged. So the vibes today are, okay. I think of the quarterback situation this way, because you're right. It could be easy to catch a segment or maybe an hour of the show or maybe a show a couple of weeks ago if you've tuned in and out, depending on how interested you are in 2-8 football, or if we're talking Vols and we happen to squeeze a Titan segment in there. And feel like we're saying, no, he's done after this year. Get rid of him. Where my position has been, well, no, he's not, but you can move him.
Yeah.
And try and put yourself in better possible draft position. But I think that their preference would be to not draft a quarterback this year in this upcoming draft class, to sign a veteran player. Whether they or not they move Will Levis is an interesting part of the discussion because, there's no reason that you couldn't keep him up on the roster. There's reason to believe that he could be a quality backup if you continue to give him time. Hell, there's reason to believe he could be a starter if you continue to give him time. And if by the time you get through with a stopgap quarterback, like if I say the name Zach Wilson, people have a very, very bad reaction.
Is he even the backup in Denver? Is he not the third string to Jarrett Stidham?
I don't know that off the top of my head. Jackson is indicating that he is the third string quarterback. A quick Google to the Denver Broncos R Lads page would probably tell you.
Yeah, he's the third stringer. He was inactive yesterday as the emergency third quarterback.
But that's a name that's making rounds, I'll tell you, in that practice facility. There is a discussion, and there's going to be discussion about Sam Darnold. There's going to be discussion about Zach Wilson. There's going to be discussion about a great many pending free agents.
I would think Zach Wilson would be at or near the bottom of that list.
I don't think that's true at all.
In terms of how attractive an
again,
option.
It's early. It's November as people put together these lists and stack players based on talent, but I would not be quick to dismiss. But that you're having a reaction that most people would have.
Yes.
Zach Wilson, no, of course not. When I'm sure plenty of Seahawks fans had that reaction around Geno, and plenty of Bucs fans may have felt that way about Baker before he had, a bit of he has had a career renaissance to his credit. So just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean that it cannot happen. And I would also apply that logic to Levis at some point in his career. 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to jump in on the conversation, we would be happy to have you. How about Mark up first?
Hey, great morning.
Yo.
I would say, man, we got a great next year to look forward to. We'll have a coach who won't be a rookie, and we'll have a quarterback, if we keep Levis out of the sophomore slump. I think he's actually done better coming off the bench. But I want to talk about Bryce Oliver, too. Did y'all see him yesterday?
Sure.
They celebrated special teams when he made a great tackle, and then he caught a great pass. I'm cutting the grass out here, y'all, but I'm gonna hang up. I'm not gonna hang up. So just leave me on the line and let me hear about Bryce Oliver real quick, and then I'll hang up later.
I got you, buddy. You know what? It's good that he clarified, because otherwise I would just think you a very heavy breather into the microphone or into the phone receptor, but that's fine. Yeah, I mean, Bryce Oliver, to his credit, is somebody that you can look at as, you're always looking for players that can help you at the bottom of the roster, right? And if he turns into a special teams contributor, and if he finds ways to make plays in limited opportunities on offense, then he deserves credit for that as well. He had the one catch for 33 yards to try and help them stay in this game. So far in limited action, he has 3 catches for 56 yards. So whether you want to attribute that to what kind of coverages the defenses are presenting when Bryce Oliver's in the game, he's making catches when he's targeted. So he absolutely deserves credit for that. I think so far he has 3 receptions on all 3 targets that he has been looked at. So that's good progress for Bryce Oliver. There's things on this roster that do matter beyond this year. Like, I know people want to throw their hands up in the air at 2-8 and whatever the record might end up being and say, oh, well, this season is a wash. No, there are things that matter for the future viability of your football team that you're also trying to figure out now. It's just how much attention do you want to pay to the Bryce Olivers of the world. So it's a good point by Mark there. More of your phone calls coming up next. We'll also pivot to some Vols CFP picture stuff in the wake of that Georgia loss. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. It's not raining, but we're happy to have you here in Middle Tennessee. Do Vols fans feel the need to come clean after a bit of a harsh reaction to the loss to Georgia? I feel like there might be some mea culpas out there, and a la Joseph feeling public shame for how badly he spiraled, thinking that the world was ending after the Georgia loss. Oh, my God, they're never going to be in the college football playoff ever again. Ever again. Nobody will ever believe in the Vols ever again.
He has issued a public apology.
Well, again, public shame still works.
Is it a Notes app apology?
It wasn't quite a note. It was an F&M Bank Chat apology.
Well, more people will see it in the F&M Bank Chat than if he puts it out on his Twitter or whatever.
So BYU lost, and that is at least one team that should be removed from the equation in terms of the amount of teams that could be in front of Tennessee in the next ranking. So that did help on Saturday.
So, we're going to spend most of our time on that here in just a second, but we have just been talking about the Titans and the quarterback vibe check, and of course that took place yesterday, so we'll start with your phone calls first before we pivot to some college football discourse here. Calvin is up next. Hey, Calvin.
Hey, Buck. How y'all doing?
We're good.
But I'm from H-Town, man. My mom used to take me to the Dome to watch Earl Campbell. So that lets you know how long I've been with this franchise.
Well, maybe I'll see you next weekend. That's the next road trip.
I know, bro. I know. I'll be here. Hey, I got stock up on Will, and this is why. I don't know if people are realizing that. I feel that he's been with, multiple coordinators throughout his career, college and pro. This is his first year in this system. The guy is still young. He's only year 2. And I know that it's, hey, we got to hurry up and get this thing going, blah, blah, blah. I get it. But this is a rebuild. People need to be patient. I think that, first of all, I think that they need to keep him. And I think first round needs to go offensive lineman, period. Just like JC, I think we need to get that on the right side and get this guy some protection. He's got the talent. He's got the arm. He's got everything that you really need. He's mobile. I just think that, we're too impatient with the young quarterbacks these days. I'll hang up and listen to what you got to say.
Okay. Thanks for the call, Calvin. We appreciate it. See you in Houston next week. I'm of that position, even if it's not Levis. It doesn't matter who plays quarterback here if they still suck around the quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Every week I am reaffirmed in my position that Will Levis is not the only problem. It is the most important position. It can cover up a lot of warts that you have. Look around the league. There are plenty of good quarterbacks covering up bad rosters elsewhere in the NFL. But this is not a quarterback situation that can cover up all the warts on the roster, and the roster warts are regularly exposed while also having insufficient quarterback play. So it's a combination of those things. So whether it's Will or whether it's somebody else, address the other needs on your roster. Put together the best possible team around the most important position, and then if you feel compelled to put a rookie in that situation, then make sure that he is properly protected. They thought, and I would say that we also thought that they had done a sufficient amount of work around Will to make that viable. Turns out, no, not even close.
Yeah, and look at what was the reason for us thinking that. DeAndre Hopkins was a big reason for that, right? He is no longer here. We didn't think, Nicholas Petit-Frere was going to be a Pro Bowl caliber right tackle, but we did not envision it being this bad.
No.
This bad.
I didn't envision on November 18th coming to the microphone and saying, or agreeing with somebody who's arguing for him to be cut and being like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So the other thing Will Levis was able to do on Sunday was find some success despite zero run game. Titans ran for 33 yards on Sunday. That ties a season low. They did that against Green Bay in a game they got blown out early in the season. So it was the first time that we saw him lift them a little bit, where, again, this is a much, much closer game if Isaiah Prince is lined up a couple inches forward on a play.
Rob is next.
Hey, guys. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Can y'all hear me?
We can.
Okay. Now, for that last caller, let me address him. For him saying people need to be patient. Well, I think the fans here have been very patient. This team hadn't went to the Super Bowl since Steve McNair have been here. Well, when he was living. So, as far as that go, enough with that one. And then you look at all the other positions on the Titans roster. Now, they have taken All the other like receivers, running backs, let them go. They go to other teams, and what do? They excel. They get better. Now the quarterbacks, have we seen them let a quarterback go and they do well on other teams? No, we haven't. So we got our answer. And my last thing, you got Justin Fields. You got Russell Wilson over at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now they got two guys on that. Good, decent players there, quarterbacks that the Titans, I think, ought to look at maybe coming here to get some experience on that team, because that team now is lacking somebody with the leadership to give this team the morale. When A.J. Brown was here, Derrick Henry was here, what did he do? It got people.
I appreciate you, Rob. We went way over the 60 seconds that we normally give out, but I didn't want to cut you off before you made several of your points. But I understand your direction, right? Malik Willis is the argument for a quarterback that left here and got better, by the way. That did happen. That is a thing. And those players that are going elsewhere and excelling are going elsewhere and excelling on better football teams, right? They're leaving a bad football team and going to better football teams. The Eagles are a better football team than the Titans. They have a quarterback. They have an offensive line. They have a legit defense.
Same with the Chargers.
They have legitimate wide receivers. The Chargers are a better football team now at 7-3. So it's not just about the players going there and getting better on their own volition. They are also surrounded by significantly better parts. Now, that's an indictment on the organization. I'm with you. I'm totally with you. You can't be a farm team for other NFL teams, for better NFL teams every year this way. I'm 100% on the same page with you about that. But this has been, I would say you're right about the level of patience that Titans fans should be expected to have. But I do think that it's tough to, because you're talking about, on aggregate, this team hasn't been to the Super Bowl since McNair, and you're right. And that would test anybody's patience. But I'm talking about specific patience for the player. They do deserve the benefit of the doubt. Was Will Levis born in the 90s? Or is Will Levis a 2000s?
Yeah, I think Levis, he's what? He's 25?
He's 25. He's going to be 26 in June.
Yeah, he would have just made the cut.
Just made the cut.
To be a 90s baby.
But like the dude that wasn't alive or was, barely in existence.
Hold on, let's see. Will Levis was
June
born...
June 27th, 1999.
Okay, so he technically was alive. Yes. During the Titans Super Bowl run.
So the 6-month-old
it was before
that
his
is
first
now
birthday.
Your starting quarterback at 25 years old has no concept of your lack of patience for the Super Bowl that happened 25 years ago. I get your point, though. I do. Somebody said, "Oh, God, I'm old," in the comments section on YouTube. Yes, as am I. It's a tough scene. Jared, before we pivot to some college football conversation. Hey, Jared.
Hey, what's going on, fellas? Hey, I guess my biggest thing, man, is with being patient, going into the new stadium now, it's not affordable for the fans. It's more of a business transaction going into the new stadium. As much money as the tickets are costing, the PSLs. I just think now, man, what's the product we're buying? I mean, I'm frustrated, man. I think patience is over when you're talking about spending this kind of money going into the new stadium, and the product is terrible, man. Y'all have a good day, guys.
Thanks for the call, Jared. I do appreciate it. So I hate that this is true, but this is something that Titans fans, I think, might remind themselves of when they have that feeling. Because you're right. Like, the product is terrible. They're upselling you on the new stadium. It's going to be a lot more expensive. Tickets are going to be a lot more limited because they're reducing the capacity of the stadium. But I almost think that, I know it's the Tennessee Titans stadium, yes? So Titans fans feel like that stadium is for them. But every time I think about that stadium, the more that I think, well, it's kind of for you, but it's not really for you. It's for the people that own the team to host the Super Bowl, to host WWE, to host the UFC, to host monster truck rallies that that may not be tenable or whatever. What events, concerts. Titans fans are a percentage of the population who that stadium is for. But Amy Adams Strunk is making money on yesterday's attendance, even though, I would argue it's 60, 65 maybe Certainly closer to 65 than 60% Vikings fans, but those are ticket sales. And those ticket sales go to the people that own the team. So I hate that that's real, but it's pretty visceral when you have to remind people of that from time to time. It's the icky part of the sports business. It's kind of for you, but it's not just for you. 615-737-1045. Somebody said to host the next Jake Paul fight. Did you watch that? I'm so mad.
I made it in time for it.
I'm so mad.
I don't
want to distract from the college football conversation. Maybe we save it for later in the week because we got time.
Maybe it's a candidate for no.
It's a candidate for the dumbest thing in sports too.
And we could go two different ways about it: the fight itself or Netflix. So Netflix might be some NFL games on Netflix. We'll see how that goes.
Might be.
I said about to be some NFL games on Netflix.
I would say might be. Depending on if they can't get their stuff together.
Yeah.
Okay. So to the college football playoff conversation, Vols lose 31-17 in Athens. They now have 2 losses on the road, both Arkansas, at Georgia. The college football playoff rankings will come out again tomorrow night. We will see where the Vols go. We will see how much the committee drops a team that lost to the number 12 team by their estimation. I know we're going to save a good portion of this conversation for tomorrow, but let's look at the picture first and foremost. What were the most consequential results for Tennessee beyond just the loss to Georgia? Let's take a look at the whole picture here before we talk about how the Vols thing, we've talked about how the Vols impact their own fate here. Let's talk about the way the rest of this thing looks before people continue to spiral.
Well, firstly, I'm legitimately curious at how the committee views this loss to Georgia. Is it something where they just look at the score and say, do they consider this a competitive game? Because Tennessee was competitive in this game. It was a 1-score game late. Georgia with a back-breaking second touchdown. I'll put it this way. The discrepancy in score was pretty much identical to 2022, but the game felt much more competitive than it was in 2022, right? Tennessee had a 10-0 lead, tied at the half. Georgia just kind of did their thing in the second half. So I am curious, that matters, how the committee views this loss. But as we've said, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Bama, Georgia, whatever variant you want to put them in, you can make an argument for anything. In terms of how the top 12 shook out over the weekend, Oregon escaped by the skin of their teeth against Wisconsin, but they'll remain unchanged. Ohio State wins. They blow out Northwestern. Really no change other than BYU at 6. BYU loses at home to a 6-loss Kansas team. That figures to drop BYU out of the top 12. What Pate was talking about, the trap door that he thinks will open under Indiana if the Hoosiers go and get blown out by Ohio State, it would make sense that trap door has opened under BYU. So where Tennessee drops remains to be seen. Do they stay in the top 12? That's the big question. And if they do, you want Boise State to be in front of you. I would rather be 13 with Boise State 12 than 12 with Boise State 13, if that makes sense. Because you do not want the highest ranked G5 team lurking behind you. Because if you're that team sitting at 12 and Boise State ends up winning their conference, and in the final college football playoff ranking, Boise is number 13 after winning their conference and being the highest ranked G5 champ, you're out. They're bumping you out because they got to be in. That is an automatic bid. So I'm looking at where Tennessee is relative to Boise, and I'm assuming that Tennessee will be ahead of BYU after the weekend. That is a result that should have helped the Vols, even though the Big 12 may be a one big league regardless. For the time being, that is a result that should help the Vols, stay in that top 12 range after the rankings come out. They dropped to 10 in the AP poll. They were also 6 in last week's AP poll. So they dropped 4 spots in the AP poll. If they were to drop 4 spots for the playoff ranking, that would put them at 11.
Was not a great weekend for some hopefuls, including LSU, who lost to Florida. I know we'll cover a lot of this in the SEC observations and SEC stat of the day throughout the course of the week. K-State, Pittsburgh, those 3 in particular did play elimination games and came out on the wrong side of the elimination results. You've got teams like Iowa State, Texas A&M, and Clemson hanging on to long shots at this point.
A&M would have to beat Texas in the regular season finale.
They've got a 12.5% chance.
Texas A&M?
Yes, to make the playoff currently, pending that Texas game here in the next couple of weeks. Also, teams trending downward, as Lucas mentioned, BYU, Miami is also one that deserves noting here. So it's going to be a pretty unpredictable. Well, I like that it's got a level of unpredictability, though that obviously the further that we get into this thing, the more that these results are going to determine themselves.
Yeah, the rooting guide is very clear-cut for Tennessee fans for the upcoming college football weekend. And I know we'll talk about it throughout the course of the week.
In Ohio State gear? What's wrong with
Hey, maybe. We'll talk about it. There's a few games that Tennessee fans will have to put it this way, there are many games.
No, answer the question.
What?
You would do that? You would come in here in Ohio State gear just to bother me?
Absolutely.
OH?
And I hate Ohio State. And it would have nothing to do with you. It would have nothing to do with you. It is for the good of
tell me that.
The team in orange. The UTEP game, the team that Tennessee actually plays, feels like the fifth most important game of the college football weekend for Vols fans.
The UTEP game.
Yes, 2-8 UTEP coming to Neyland Stadium on Saturday. So very chalky, but Tennessee, number 7 going into last weekend, and that makes it every single college football weekend in 2024, at least one top 10 team has lost. So we'll see if that maintains throughout the next few weeks.
615-737-1045 is the number if you would like to join the conversation, be it Vols or Titans related. Both teams suffering losses in their respective or against their respective opponents this week. A quick reminder that you can get some good vibes in your life by hanging out with 3HL this Thursday. They're going to broadcast live from Buffalo Wild Wings B-Dubs in Hermitage for their next football feast. You can stop by for the opportunity to win some Titans tickets and several other giveaways each hour thanks to Miller Lite, Kroger, and Buffalo Wild Wings. Plus, be a part of Ron Slay's weekly Miller Lite Wash Away Toast at 5 p.m. For more info, visit 1045thezone.com/TFF. So 3HL this Thursday at the Hermitage Buffalo Wild Wings. So tell me how you experienced, the two of you. Let's start with Jackson. Where were you? Who were you around? What was your emotional state at the start? How did your emotional state end by the finish?
I was at my buddy Austin's house. Emotional state at the start was pretty good. I was actually very optimistic for this game. And at the end, it was pretty sad.
So what does sad look like? I gotta, your tears sustain me, so I gotta feel this. I gotta be able to visualize it in my mind's eye. How sad were you? Were there tears?
There were no tears. It was a group of about 12 of us, all just with our heads down, and we all just kind of went home. There was nothing when the clock hit 0. It's like, all right, dapping everybody up, and time to hit the house.
So this isn't an Arrested Development bit. It's a Charlie Brown bit where there's the sad music and you see somebody shuffling away, hanging their head. They do it in Arrested Development as well, but that's just what I picture. Just 12 of you hanging your head, shuffling out of the room to music.
Almost exactly. Be all to our separate Ubers, and we went home and just went to sleep. It was over.
Lucas?
Yeah, I was at a watch party with some friends, a couple Georgia fans, mostly Tennessee fans.
What was the worst thing you screamed at Carson Beck in your blind rage? Because
kill
I know
him!
Yeah. Well, I mean, kill him is the standard. That's not the worst thing I've heard him yell. It's just his go-to line. Kill him!
No, well, to be honest, if a Tennessee fan hypothetically wanted to be screaming that, they wouldn't have even had much of the chance to, because they weren't even really getting close to Carson Beck. And Josh Heupel is speaking now. He might have just wrapped up his press conference, and that's a big talking point for him today. They did not bother him in the pocket. It's one of the biggest reasons for why Georgia won. Look, Georgia'd after Tennessee took that 10-0 lead. They just took over in the trenches, and that sort of defined the game from there on out. Tennessee did not have a pass play of longer than 17 yards. So receivers have let Nico down at times this year. I think that was the case last weekend more than the other way around. I think Nico had maybe one overthrow, but an uncharacteristic drop from Dante Thornton. And there are other places where you could say Tennessee did not catch a break, but the biggest reason why Tennessee lost is because they couldn't affect the quarterback and they had no downfield threat in the passing game. It's amazing that Dylan Sampson ran for 150 yards despite that. So imagine what he could have.
I had to double check that, by the way. I was like, he had how many?
He had a great game. He continues to have a phenomenal season, but Tennessee could not push the ball down the field. So that just puts Tennessee right there in that pile. So, it wasn't this devastating season over loss because it's not over. You went out and you're right there in that pile. And here's the thing that you have if you're a Tennessee fan, the SEC, and understanding that the SEC and Greg Sankey will pitch a fit if one of these teams gets left out. So you do have that to your advantage, and the SEC can take its ball and go home in 2 years. So we'll see how that all plays out.
Speaking of taking your ball and going home, that's what it felt like Titans fans were doing in the message that was sent to their ownership group yesterday with how I'm not going to say that Titans fans let Vikings fans take over that stadium, but Vikings fans did do so in a way that was embarrassing to everybody involved. We're going to talk about the crowd and what that looked like yesterday coming up next. The Tennessee Men's Clinic has been a great resource for over a decade here in Middle Tennessee for guys who have given up hope. Lots of men assume that if the pills stop working for ED treatments, they have no other options than irreversible surgery to treat ED. And the sad reality is that if you go to a doctor to seek treatment, those may be the only protocols that they have available for you. Do not go through irreversible surgery to treat your ED before you have talked to the experts at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. They specialize in men's sexual health issues. It's all they do, and it makes them the experts in the field. They have access to multiple protocols and options to treat your ED based on your specific needs and what's going on in your body. So don't trust your health to an online pharmacy, and don't feel like you are out of options, because they want you to understand all the options they have available for you. The Tennessee Men's Clinic protocols are patient-centered and customized to your needs. They have treatments for everything from low testosterone to ED, treatments that increase size and stamina and everything else in between. The bottom line is no one has more expertise and experience in successfully treating men's sexual health issues than the Tennessee Men's Clinic, and they are passionate about what they do. So schedule an appointment online today at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for their Franklin or Midtown location, or call them 615-208-9090. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Hattie B's also conveniently located, not just in many Middle Tennessee locations, but also in Nissan Stadium, if you would like to attend. I don't know how many Vikings fans were able to try some Hattie B's Hot Chicken, the best hot chicken out there, of course, at Nissan Stadium, but there were plenty in the house if they wanted the opportunity to do so. Now, I can be a bit dramatic. I can be a little hyperbolic from time to time. So I wanted to make sure that I was, appropriately. I wanted to make sure that I asked people who were not to be able to talk about the crowd yesterday at Nissan Stadium. We do the Lee Company Countdown to Kickoff for 2 hours. Well, I guess it's 3 hours before kick, but we do the show for 2 hours on Sundays for home games. It's me, it's Kayla, it's Blaine, and it's Brad Hopkins. And the entire time that we're sitting out there outside of Gate 3, which is, not too big of a difference from what we're accustomed to seeing, especially when the local football team is losing the way that they have been. But we saw waves, Lucas, I'm telling you, waves of purple heading at our direction, walking into Gate 3. Now, it's just one gate, but Vikings fans took over the stadium yesterday. I went and talked to several people who have been covering the team for longer than me. For me, this has been my 8th season, and I've seen some crowd takeovers in my time. But this is up there among the worst. It was close to an all-timer. Talked to, people like Teresa Walker, John Glennon, people who have been around for 20-plus years. They were in agreement. This at least ranks among the worst opposing fan takeovers at Nissan Stadium of all time. You could go back to the Raiders in 16. You could go back to the Packers in 17. I honestly think that Packers game in 17 was worse than this year's.
And probably any of those games in Memphis or Vanderbilt Stadium.
Sure, but I'm talking about Nissan Stadium.
Yeah.
Nissan Stadium, the home of the Tennessee Titans. Yes, yesterday was not a home game for the local team. It was a hostile environment. There were skull chants throughout the course of it. There were very loud skull chants as Titans fans were trickling out toward the halfway point or towards the end of the fourth quarter. It's not a new thing. It's happened before. But every time I see something like that, I am hit with the same reaction of, this is the kind of crowd that gets somebody fired. Now, I don't know I'm not talking like Fall Guy type of people. Like, your product is so bad, the people responsible for putting together the product are all on notice at 2-8 already. But then when you allow a situation to look like that, and I know every coach in the history of coaches has gotten to a podium when they get a job and say, we're going to turn X home stadium into the most fearsome place to play in college football and NFL. And Brian Callahan, no different, right? And that's fine. That's exactly what he's supposed to say. I'm not killing him for that. But that it's gone so far in the reverse, that we are a destination city, that we are a welcoming people. I would say that we do appreciate their tourism dollars. Certainly they're help contributing to the new stadium. They're helping pay for it, the Bachelorettes, the Vikings fans, and everybody else in between. But you know what I watched yesterday and thought of? I used to do Vandy games when I was broke out of college, okay? I think it was like, God bless Larry Leathers for being willing to pay me like $100 a game to do press box PA for Vandy games. You sit in the press box, you do the PA for home games, Vandy. And, what has been a very common Vanderbilt experience, opposing fans filling their stadium to the point where the home team is in a hostile atmosphere on a regular basis, week in, week out, home or road. The Titans have Vanderbilt vibe. And I don't want to feel like I'm bashing Vandy because they've done well this year to try and turn the tide. And all it takes is winning to at least make people feel like they can be invested in your product again. But that it had clear and obvious Vanderbilt hosting Alabama or Texas vibes to it yesterday made me look at them like, oh my God, are you guys the Vandy of the NFL? Like, is that really what you would? I mean, obviously you don't want that associated with your product. You're not gonna look around and say, oh my God, are we Vanderbilt? Is that our home field advantage here? But it just had such a stark parallel to what Vanderbilt has experienced over the past couple of years for a lot of the same reasons, by the way. Nashville's a much nicer place, I would assume, than Tuscaloosa. I've never been, but we have more things to do here, one would imagine, for Bama fans to make a weekend trip out of it, Vikings fans to make a weekend trip out of it. They cannot afford to let Nissan Stadium look that way. I mean, they can because people are still buying tickets, I guess, and I don't know how else to shame the billionaires into saying, like, don't you need to do something here?
Like what?
I don't know. I get it.
You win games and that doesn't happen.
I understand.
This is the product of being
okay, but they've hired a bunch of people that don't win games.
Sure.
Like that's what I'm looking at. You've hired a bunch of people that don't win games. And I'm not saying that the last people won a bunch of games that were worth keeping around. I know it was 7 wins in 22 and 6 wins last year. Like I get that. They were a losing team.
So fire the first-year head coach? Like I'm confused at what you say. Somebody needs to be fired.
No, I'm not saying that somebody needs to be fired. Okay. I'm saying that's the kind of crowd that gets people fired. Sure. All right? Like whether or not, I'm not going to come out here and say, no, one person specifically, Carthon, Callahan, I don't know, Colt Anderson, whomever. I'm not out here headhunting saying, no, because they let Minnesota Vikings fans take over the stadium the way that they did, that somebody's head must roll. But somebody could when you continue to embarrass an ownership group that way, and yesterday was embarrassing. And I want to make sure that I'm clear on this. This is not on Titans fans. Titans fans have been put into this position. My girlfriend's a diehard Titans fan. Her family has had season tickets since they existed at Nissan Stadium. She was like, no, I'm going to clean the house. It's a beautiful day in Nashville, Tennessee. Beautiful fall. The first time it's really felt like fall at Nissan Stadium. Quality opponent coming to town. Reason to think that the quarterback might be able to put something together. I don't know. We'll see. I'd rather clean. I'd rather scrub a toilet.
Yeah, sure. Look, it's a 2-8 football team playing in a destination city, and on Sunday playing an opponent that is a Super Bowl contender with an extremely good fan base that doesn't really get the chance to go to Nashville that often. I mean, when's the last time the Titans played the Vikings in Nashville?
I'd have to look it up.
They went up there in 2020, right? That's the last time they played them in general. So there's a ton of Vikings fans out there. And this maybe is a conversation for another day. I think the Vikings are one of the better fan bases in the NFL. You called them a second-tier fan base. I don't know if that was on or off the air. I disagree with that.
It was off the air, but no, they're not. They're not the Steelers.
I mean, they're
not the Packers.
We asked Ben Jones what best environment you played in the NFL. I think Minnesota was either the first or second atmosphere to come out of his mouth when he was with us on Friday at Hattie B's. It's an excellent fan base that doesn't get the chance to come down here that often. Titans are 2-8. Titans are even more of a destination city now than they were in the Whisenhunt years when they were struggling with 2-3 win seasons. So it's all of those things combined ends up with a ton of Vikings fans at Nissan Stadium. The solution is win games. This wasn't happening in 2021, right? Like this was not happening when Derrick Henry's running for...
To some extent, right? Like the Bills would come in here, but like that's who I think of like cream of the crop. Like I'm expecting Bills fans to come in here every time they play here and take it over. I do not expect, and I know they're 8-2. And by the way, there are Minnesota fans that live in Tennessee. Like these are not just out of towners. There are plenty of people that move here from all over the place and that then show themselves, because God love Blaine. Blaine was standing on the stage outside of Gate 3 yelling at Vikings fans, not yelling at them, not like accosting them, but like asking them, are you from here? Like where are you coming from? Why are there so many of you? And the feedback that Blaine was getting, like Blaine just sitting there yelling off the stage, where'd you get your tickets? They're like, yeah, we live here.
Disagree with you that the Vikings are a second-tier fan base. Don't let that get out to Vikings fans because they will come at your neck.
That's not a bad thing. They're just not like the best. They're not the fan base that I think every week is going to take over an opposing stadium, no matter there are like 3 that way.
In 2021, Titans played the Bills on Monday Night Football. There were a bunch of Bills fans here, yes, but that game was electric. That atmosphere was electric because of Titans fans as well. So you just win games, right?
And you gave Titans fans, they definitely let themselves be known there yesterday when NWI scores a 98-yard touchdown. It's easier to think that it's worse than it looks or feels when the product also is giving the fans that are in attendance. And God love people that go to those games because there are people who support that team no matter how god-awful they are. But it's a combination of things. I understand it's a problem that Nashville's probably always going to have.
Yeah.
But that is one of those that I look at and say, oh, this is so embarrassing. So embarrassing. But it's not on Titans fans to me. It's on the people who are responsible for making these decisions and trying to, not just saying the words, we're going to make this one of the most competitive atmospheres in the NFL. Okay, do something about it. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. We'll get more of your phone calls coming up next. And also, speaking of things that piss you off, refs.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans fell to the Vikings at home Sunday, 23-13. Will Levis, 17 of 31, 295 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, including a 98-yard touchdown to Nick Westbrook-Akine in the third quarter. It ties the longest pass play in franchise history. Titans could only muster 33 yards rushing on Sunday. Levis was sacked 5 times as they fall to 2-8. Brian Callahan meets with the media today at 12:45. Around the NFL, the New York Giants are benching quarterback Daniel Jones, replacing him with Tommy DeVito. Jones moves down to the QB3 spot. Drew Lock will be the backup in New York, who is also 2-8. Over the college football weekend, Tennessee shut out in the second half and lost at Georgia 31-17. Despite having a 10-0 lead early, it's the Vols' second loss of the season. College football playoff rankings come out again Tuesday night. And on Monday Night Football, the 6-4 Texans visit the 3-6 Cowboys. That is tonight, kickoff at 7:15. Westwood One coverage on the Zone starts at 7. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour on this Monday. Thanks for hanging out, jumping in. Phone calls to take. We'll do that. Comments available to read in the F&M Bank chat, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. If you feel so inclined, you can live stream the show there. Let's talk about the one thing that dominated the discourse over, honestly, it felt like both Tennessee football teams this week. There was a overwhelming amount of talk about officials. Vols fans, I'm not saying I'm not caping up for the officials in the Vols Georgia game. I'm just saying, that's not why you lost. You were worse. You got bullied by a better team than you, and you lost the game. And also, there were bad officials in that game.
Officiating made much more of an impact on the Titans game than the Vols game.
Correct.
Right? The Vols got no breaks, no 50-50, zero.
No.
But Tennessee still loses that game, in my opinion. If all of the calls that went against Tennessee don't go against Tennessee, I think the way that game was going and the matchups Georgia was winning, Tennessee still loses. I'm not saying that's the reason why the Titans lost yesterday, but it had much more of an impact.
Oh, no, for sure. Because, I'm not interested in hearing Vols fans call me today or call us today about refs. I don't care. But I will hear Titans fans out on it because I think that you were robbed.
Yeah.
I think that not of the game, but I think that you were robbed in now 2 weeks where there have been horrifying calls that have gone directly against your team. Yesterday was so lopsided in terms of the disparity of penalties. And there are penalties that the Titans are committing, and Isaiah Prince cost them points and all these different things. I'm not saying that the refs were completely off base, but they did make some horrifying decisions in that game, and there's no accountability for the refs other than for people like us to get in front of a microphone and scream about it afterwards, because what the hell are you doing? Again.
Titans were penalized 13 times for a total of 91 yards. 9 of those for 71 yards in the first half alone.
So the crux of the issue today, because there were a couple of calls that were controversial that did lead directly to Minnesota points, or did wipe directly off points for the Titans. Isaiah Prince committed a penalty. It was a good call. Titans 51-yard touchdown to Calvin Ridley gets wiped off the board. It sucks for Calvin Ridley. It sucks for Will Levis. It sucks for Titans fans and their team, but that's on Isaiah Prince. This 4th and goal stop that got reversed with this controversial, unnecessary roughness call that was called on Mike Brown, the backup safety, gave Minnesota fresh set of downs, 1 yard line, able to punch it in for a touchdown. Replay, everybody at the stadium sees it. Everybody at the stadium sees Mike Brown put his shoulder into the chest of Jordan Addison. It's not head-to-head. He's not launching himself. His feet are on the ground. He's just moving real fast. He's running real fast at the wide receiver who's trying to make a catch in the end zone. So on the replay, and I'm sitting in the press box just like last week in SoFi, I'm looking at the Jumbotron at the stadium that I'm at. I'm saying, oh, like last week, That's a fumble. That's a recovery. That's a touchdown. Roger McCreary should have a touchdown. And then the refs tell Brian Callahan, yeah, call's going to stand. And then it goes back to replay in New York. And they say, yeah, our bad, Brian. Like, not gonna go. It's going to get reversed. No touchdown. Huge shift in momentum for the team that does not get the benefit of the doubt on that call, that does not get the correct call. It's not even the benefit of the doubt. Does not get the correct call. That was an incorrect call on Mike Brown. And Brian Callahan loses it. I mean, loses it to the point where he also gets penalized. The refs gather around Brian Callahan. They allow Brian Callahan to scream at his face or scream at their respective faces, and then they go about their business and say, yeah, okay, penalty on you too. He doesn't leave his feet. He doesn't make contact with the head or neck area. And his feet are still on the ground when he hits Jordan Addison. So, again, for the second week in a row, we have to go to a pool report. We have to request, because there's no accountability, we have to request an interview with the respective pool reporter, which yesterday for the home team was Nick Suss, our buddy from the Tennessean, and he gets an interview with Clete Blakeman on specifically the unnecessary roughness penalty. And we call this segment reading. Question. Regarding the unnecessary roughness on the 4th and 1 there, can you just start by explaining what was the unnecessary roughness on that play? Second quarter, Minnesota 4th and goal at the 1, 7:48 remaining. Clete Blakeman. We had two officials call it. Essentially, the defensive player launched into the receiver, who is considered a defenseless receiver or a defenseless player, and there was helmet contact to the chest and neck area. Not head and neck area, which is what the rule says, but chest and neck area. Question. So what were the discussions on the field? You said that there were two calls. Was there any difference in opinion, or was it complete agreement there? Blakeman, they were in line together. It was just essentially confirming what each guy saw. Question, I know those plays aren't reviewable, but was there any contact from the booth? So New York about the replay official in the booth, or going back to New York about that play in general, or was it just kind of cut and dry once it was over? Blakeman, nothing came down assist-wise from replay. When you looked at the play, question, when you looked at the play, did you get a clear view of it? Were you one of the referees that threw the flag? Quote from Blakeman, the two officials that threw it were the down judge and who was on the line of scrimmage and his downfield partner, the side judge. So they were both in position close to the end zone. Essentially, they had different angles, but they had good looks. And then the rest of the pool report is about the illegal procedure penalties on Isaiah Prince. That's crap. That everybody else seeing it one way, like unbiased, not just Titans fans who are miserable in the stadium, not just Vikings players who are coming up to Mike Brown. We talked to Mike Brown in the locker room. Mike Brown said, yeah, Vikings players came up to me afterwards, like after the game, not the play. It's like, hey man, that was just a bad call. Like,
he made a great play.
Made a great play.
Yeah,
made a great defensive play.
Yeah, straight up. He got the defense off the field, prevented a touchdown to put the Titans offense back on the field.
So Blakeman saying that no further discussions were needed on the field and no assistance was called in for the NFL replay official or replay assist, and they're just leaving it in the hands of the two referees who made the call on the field. So that's Dana McKenzie and Jonah Monroe, who are the officials who made the call. Everybody saw the replay on the Nissan Stadium video board, including Brian Callahan, who loses his mind, rightfully so, because now he has been on the wrong end of two bad calls in back-to-back weeks that directly impact the momentum of the game. Again, I am not saying that the Titans would beat the Chargers or beat the Vikings if they get those two calls to go their way, because there were other calls in that game that could be questioned too, whether it's James Williams and his horse collar that wasn't a horse collar, or all these other things that you can nitpick, because those things happen to every team in every level of football, no matter whether they're the Titans, the Vikings, maybe they're not the Chiefs. Chiefs maybe get more calls than most people. But, the defensive pass interference on Brownlee early in that game. Like, there are examples of that all over the place, but none as egregious as what happened on that unnecessary roughness call. It's one of the worst calls I've ever seen. And I don't know what you do if you're a defender. You have to play football that way. You made a great football play. That should be on if Mike Brown has a highlight reel, if he's a pending free agent or something like that, or if his agent's out here shopping him to teams in the offseason saying, hey, this guy's a high effort, high energy player, he makes good defensive plays. Oh, you mean the flag? I don't know what to tell you. It's a good play. I don't know what you do And it's never going to change because, just like we talked about last week, officials are an extension of the league. The league is not going to allow you to question it. And they're, by extension, not going to allow you to question the officials. I mean, you can, but they're not going to do anything about it. There's no accountability. There's no fine system for the refs when they miss a call. I saw somebody in the one of the refs in the Eagles game on Thursday night came out and said that they had a couple of bad calls in that game, that there were a couple of calls that they didn't agree with. I haven't gotten to watch the TV copy yet, but apparently the CBS crew, the unbiased CBS crew, and I think even Gene Steratore, based on what I was reading on Twitter, said that he disagreed with some of the calls on the field. Maybe not necessarily the unnecessary roughness call, though that was the most disagreeable call of the day. CBS put together a highlight package of all the missed calls or calls that went against the Titans in that game that were of huge consequence. 2-8 football team is probably going to lose to the 8-2 football team, or 2-7 football team going to lose to the 7-2 football team before the result was decided yesterday. But the fact that this team has been in these situations twice now, and you're just supposed to throw your hands up in the air and shrug after the pool report and say, oh, okay, that makes sense. No, that's crap. I wish there was a solution. Somebody needs to, you just have to get it off your chest after you see a couple of these things and hope that something gets done better. Don't you feel like we have advanced technologically past the point of what the officials do on the field? I mean, there's always going to be human error. We've got GPS that tracks every movement that the players make on the field. I don't know. I mean, we've got the ability to fine-tune these things as much as humanly possible, and everybody in the world sitting at home on these televisions watching these games probably has better views in real time than the ref does on the field. And again, I acknowledge it's such a hard job, but that's as much sympathy as that you will get from me on the degree of difficulty that the refs have doing it. The job is to get the calls right. And now you have specific examples being pinpointed by people across the league saying, no, these calls are crap. And they continue. I know there was a bad one in the Chargers-Bengals game last night. Like, it's not just the Titans-Vikings. Officiating is bad, full stop. 615-737-1045 is how you get in on the conversation. Speaking of interesting, or things that are interesting, can Will Levis make it interesting? We'll talk about it coming up next. Welcome back to the show. Fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. 615-737-1045 is how you get involved. We just touched on officiating. I suppose I should let you hear from Brian Callahan. His press conference is not scheduled until 12:45 today, which means for him probably about 12:50. So we will not carry that for you, but perhaps Lucas and Blaine will, since Lucas is filling in with Blaine coming up next. Let's hear from Brian Callahan last night, trying to keep himself from losing more money or losing money based on officiating fines or criticizing officials, which would result in a fine from the league. Though I don't know. I feel like the way that he freaked out on him yesterday is probably going to draw some sort of a fine. We'll see. But Brian Callahan doing his best to not overstep yesterday while expressing frustration with the officiating.
I mean, they have every right to be frustrated, and they should be. It is what it is. I think those guys played hard. They fought. They fought the entire game, and kept trying to climb back into it and make plays, and we made quite a few, and it was really a lot of encouraging things about it, and we just didn't have enough to overcome it and find a way to get in the end zone, another time or two. So I'm disappointed about that part.
He's talking about the players. Like, what do you tell? But basically, we're trying to ask him questions that don't cost him money. So we're like tiptoeing around it last night with Brian Callahan while also asking questions because it played a huge role in the game, but you don't want to be the person that costs Brian Callahan, I don't know, $40,000 or something like that if he takes it too far. So he's being asked about what do you say to the players about when officiating impacts the results so clearly and obviously as it did yesterday. I mean, that's probably, I haven't seen every NFL game this season, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but that's probably one of the most impacted games by officiating anywhere in the league this year. I would have to imagine, given the amount of points that it wiped off the board or points that were led to because of officiating decisions there. I think that from a player standpoint, you also have to be careful because they can result in fines for the players too. And Jeff Simmons left it well, it feels like we're cursed when it comes to these officiating calls. He was involved in one last week. Now you have a situation where one of his defensive teammates, Mike Brown, is involved in one this week and trying to maneuver as best you can while still expressing your level of displeasure with just how much of an impact the refs had. Is it the Farmer's Dog ad that they're running that's trying to humanize the officials on a regular basis, which had me for a moment, had me in the first half of that commercial, but then I remember, oh no, they're still refs.
So what, they're just not people anymore?
No.
My goodness, you are really going all the way with this
crap. I think it's crap.
You don't think that was like just a touch too much?
No.
No, I've decided they're not actually humans. What? Come on. I get it. I get it. There were some bad calls yesterday, but let's just bring it back.
No, I'm like Terry Bradshaw on the NFL desk saying that they should put down Deshaun Watson. They should put down NFL officiating. I'm tired of it. It's terrible.
Let's calm down a little bit.
No. You don't think that commercial buys them more goodwill than they deserve? Get out of here.
I think the commercial is well done.
The commercial is well done. Almost to the point where it makes me think the rest is humans.
My goodness.
Nope.
Buck, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
Rights?
You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we ask you any questions.
I haven't killed anybody.
You have the right to, I'm arresting you.
For?
You're a prisoner.
Of?
The moment. If you cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you before any questioning if you wish. If you decide to answer questions now without a lawyer present, you have the right to stop answering at any time.
No, it's not prisoner of the moment. I feel like this every week. It's just now I'm at the point where I've covered 2 games that they directly impact, and I'm sick of it. I don't want... Lucas, I'm trying to learn something about the Tennessee Titans as a football team. By the way, it was a good joke. I don't give you credit very often.
I've never actually read their Miranda rights past the second sentence.
Well, yeah, you just listen to them on an episode of Law & Order. And
or Cops or something.
Right. But what I will tell you is this. Okay, so think of it from this perspective. What do we spend 3 hours a day trying to do with specific to the Titans? Figure things out about them. Yeah. Just learn things generally about what is and is not functional on this football team. And what am I doing today in the most important hour of the show? I'm talking a hell of a lot about officiating, impacting not just the team's ability to evaluate itself, because livelihoods are determined by win-loss records, whether it be players, coaches, front office members, or otherwise. But it also impacts the ability to learn things about this football team. It directly takes away from it. I'm sitting there, we're doing a press conference with the coach last night, not about the quarterback, not about the progress that he makes. We have a segment blocked out here. Can Will Levis make it interesting? He could have. That 51-yard touchdown would have made things interesting. That's not a bad call. That's on Isaiah Prince. But I'm saying, like, it directly impacts all of it to the point where it is so overwhelming yesterday that it becomes the story. It's not the Vikings moving to 8-2 or the Titans falling to 2-8. It's how did the officials botch this unnecessary roughness call to the point where they take up all the oxygen around the game on a Monday after a game is played. That's why I'm pissed.
I understand. A lot of people are pissed. Just take a step back to realize the range that you just displayed from saying, Vols fans, I don't want to hear about the officiating, don't care about it, to referees are subhuman. That is the ground that we covered here in these 20 minutes.
Yeah, but I feel that way about Vols fans whining about the officiating in a
How do you think you sound right now? Like, I understand it had an impact yesterday, but, like, let's just bring it back. Bring it back a little bit.
I'm not whining, I'm yelling. Those are different, I feel like. What I saw on Saturday was whining. What I saw from Titans fans yesterday was justified.
And guess what?
Those are two different conversations, and I know you know that.
Here's the thing. Is there a big difference between 3-7 and 2-8? No. So let's remove all of that stuff. I understand a gutsy stop on fourth down by the defense was taken away from them, and a mistake by the right tackle took away a 51-yard bomb to Calvin Ridley. But that throw still happened. It's still on tape.
Oh, yeah.
And we can still talk about it and use it as part of the information that we use when we're talking about Will Levis.
But I'm not just talking about you and I, and that is our job to suss through that and still provide the evaluation. I'm just saying they make our lives harder, but fans don't have to do that. Fans are just going to be pissed about the officiating. And today they are justified. On Saturday against the Vols, or in that Vols game, they weren't good, but it's not justified to say, well, the Vols, what I read on A to Z Sports this morning, and again, I like Zach Reagan, but that's crap. Conspiracy, SEC, or the officials in ESPN are in cahoots to deprive the Vols of a win at Athens. What was the headline? ESPN and the SEC had a clear agenda in Athens against the Tennessee Vols, and there's plenty of proof. No, that to me is prisoner of the moment whining.
We've talked too much about the officials already.
I understand. Now you want to do the quarterback conversation for the 7,000th time? We can do that.
I don't know what else 2024 is about.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. Let's go to Bruce next.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good.
I just wanted to say, if you go to carlsonblakeman.com, you can send Clete Blakeman a message about how bad he is at his job. That link goes to his full-time job. Thanks.
I don't love the seeking out of the personal information.
Oh, okay. Well, look, I guess that's improvement from you calling them literally subhuman just minutes ago.
I stand by it.
Saying they should be put down.
In fact, I would prefer them to not be human at all. I would prefer computers. I'm making the case that we have advanced past the point of their relevance on the field.
Brian Callahan yelling at a Roomba for an unnecessary roughness call would have been much funnier.
I trust the Roomba more. I don't know how you could dispute that.
I don't know if you've met my Roomba, but he is far more incompetent than any human you can put in stripes.
When's the last time you updated the Roomba?
Oh, I don't know.
That's on you. Because if you're talking about like first-gen things, those things are idiots.
His name is Rudy, and he's not one of those that like memorizes the map of the house. He just kind of goes on his way, bumping into stuff and just vacuuming whatever he goes over. But he gets caught into some predicaments.
We need to move on because I'm seeing a comment from Ryan Powell that says Buck Saturday was worse, and it's just going to make me mad at Vols fans all over again because it's nonsense. Let's pivot to the quarterback discussion. Can he make things interesting? 7 games left, 2024. Will Levis on the roster, not just this year, but under contract for 2025, also under contract for 2026. Is there enough in 2 weeks that, one, makes you willing to give him an opportunity? Because I feel like a lot of people, even prior to him returning to the lineup, were just like, yeah, I'm good. And by the way, I was one of those people. And I reserve the right to still be one of those people. Like, my position still kind of is, okay, let him play well enough, and then you try to move him and you reset the board at quarterback, but you don't have to. It's an option. I think it's a good one. I also reserve the right to let him earn my trust back. I think he's done that in the last 2 weeks. Not totally. Don't veer to extremes, but can Will Levis make it interesting enough to where you allow him the opportunity to earn your trust back? Or are, one, Titans fans so done with him that they're not willing to let him earn their trust back? Are there so many Vols fans that are also Titans fans that came into this thing already biased against him, which I don't think was fair, even though I understand their perspective? I think that he can. I think that he absolutely can. I think that the last 2 weeks is evidence that he is capable of doing it. It's not good enough. They're still losing by double digits in games where he's earned or starting to earn back some level of trust. But it doesn't have to be definitive with 7 more sample sizes left to go.
At some point, it would have to translate to wins, right? I think that would be the next step, is to win games with Will Levis as your starting quarterback.
So let's start there.
Yeah, he has made undeniable
do things
progress
yesterday that would contribute, if all things were equal, if I'm not sitting up here bitching for 20 minutes about officiating today, if all things were relatively equal, and they never are because it's the NFL, could he have done enough to win a football game yesterday? My answer to that is yes. Like, I know people are going to say, well, he threw another pick. Game is out of hand.
Yeah, pressing
he's
late.
Chasing. They're down by 10. There's like a minute something left on the clock. The pick is not the problem.
Yeah. Put almost no stock in that interception.
And there is one sack that I believe that he took beyond. I mean, how many times was he sacked yesterday?
5.
5 in total?
I'd be curious to hear Brian Callahan today at his presser at 12:45 kind of rehash that question. How many of the sacks do you think were quarterback sacks? There was one definitely where he kind of just ran straight into it, where instead of stepping up into the pocket, he kind of just tucked and ducked his shoulder straight into the arms of a defensive lineman. But I'd wonder what Callahan's opinion on that would be.
So I think the answer to that question is yes. I think that he's done it in the last 2 weeks, or taken strides that are incremental but do still matter. And I think that there's a case for him to, I mean, I don't know if he should be the Titans quarterback beyond this year. And the worst case scenario is that he just kind of he levels out. He plateaus at some point in the season, but you can't really figure it out because maybe he throws a good performance in there as well. But the plateau is there, right? I like what I saw from Will Levis yesterday. I felt pretty good about it. I know that it doesn't matter when you lose, and that he's frustrated because he's still losing, and for all the reasons that we've talked about, that he hasn't quarterbacked a team to a win since last December. But I felt okay about it.
What did we had a discussion last week, percentage chance. What percentage chance do you give Will Levis to be this team's quarterback next season? I think
starting quarterback.
Yeah, I think I went with
3,
maybe 10 or 12. You went with 2.
I think you're giving both of us more credit. I think I went 0.05.
Oh, and I went with 2 or 3.
You went 3. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wonder what is that now?
Should I read you the Miranda rights?
What is that now? I mean, can he just make the discussion interesting?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like we thought.
I'll give him a 1%. I'll give him a 1% chance. That's up for me.
Is he out of the woods on the early season disaster stuff that we saw?
No.
Right? That's the biggest question.
Well, I don't know.
Right, we don't know.
Because
that's what I'm saying. Can he prove that he is? Can he prove that was just kind of this something he had to go through?
I don't think that he can this year, though, right? Because it's always going to be, because he's done it, right? He's done it once. So people are never going to forgive him for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there will be people who may begrudgingly would begrudgingly acknowledge that he's making improvements, but still say that's not my quarterback because he did this in week 2 or week 1 or both.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that will always exist as a part of his resume. And the thing that made him do that is in his head and is impossible to evaluate unless you bring in a sports psychologist that's going to give us all a detailed list of reasons why Will Levis in the early part of the season may or may not have had these maniac moments, or what led to them, or why he's so talented, like all the different things, right? I don't know that he can prove that other than to just never, ever in his career do it again. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we have talked about the fact that it would need to be a pretty dramatic turnaround for him to kind of get people back onto the path of, okay, there could be something here with Will Levis in Tennessee. So he has started 7 games. He's played in 7 games this year. So
we are now at 16 career starts for Will Levis.
Right. So the door remains open for that turnaround, however unlikely you think that is. Like we've talked about Jordan Love last year and it seemingly clicking for him, some sort of breakthrough happening mid-season where he went from playing pretty pedestrian football to, borderline elite quarterback play in that back half of the regular season.
I picked him to win MVP this year.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people did. So this is not at all to compare Will Levis to Jordan Love, but to say that those things can happen and the Colts are having a similar conversation. Oh, that did something click with Anthony Richardson, right? Has something clicked with Bo Nix, who was great yesterday. He was phenomenal. The Broncos, ran the Falcons out of the building yesterday. And Bo Nix was efficient. He was making downfield plays. He was moving in the pocket. So that door remains open with Levis, but he just has to continue to show it and do it on the road in a divisional game against Houston next weekend.
615-737-1045 is the number if you want to chime in. We will get to your phone calls here in just a second. I'll remind you that this Thanksgiving morning you can hang out with our friends at Two Rivers Ford for the Tommy Crockett Memorial Rescue Run 5K and Family Fun Run. You can make it a family event and bring strollers and the dogs and come together to raise money for the Animal Rescue Corps. The Two Rivers Ford Tommy Crockett Memorial Rescue Run 5K and Family Fun Run, Thursday, November 28th at 76 Belinda Parkway in Mount Juliet. You can register now at 1045thezone.com/event. So if you haven't gotten your turkey trot plans yet, Two Rivers has you covered there, and it raises money for a great cause. Let's go to Dylan up first. Hey, Dylan.
Hey, how are you doing, guys?
Good.
So I've been on hold for a minute, but you were talking about the attendance issues. You have to look at, who wants to go to Houston, Indy, Jacksonville compared to Nashville? And it's as simple as looking back at the Titans when they first started out. They had, overwhelming from Detroit. Nobody wants to be in Detroit, so they were all the Pred Wings. That's kind of one of the positives and negative about having Nashville as a destination spot. So it's going to be there for every sport, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree to an extent, but not yesterday. Yesterday is majority. Like that's the thing. And the Preds at the time with the Pred Wings, they were a new franchise. This is 26 years of Titans football, and the product is hideous, and people are taking over their stadium while that's happening, understandably so, because the Titans don't win and people aren't showing up expecting the Titans to win at this point. So it can be done by degrees. Let's see if we can get back on topic with David.
Good morning, everybody. First-time caller. Thank you for taking my call. When you're talking about the NFL quarterback position, things have changed over the years. How long did Brady sit behind the starting quarterback? How about Aaron Rodgers sitting behind the starting quarterback? These guys come into the league right out of college, and so much of an expectation of performance is placed on them. That's a lot of pressure. You got to remember, this is still a young guy. Look at the Vikings. They got Darnold. Darnold had a bad reputation wherever he had been, and now, the first 5 weeks of the season, and they want to make him the MVP. So I think I don't think that these young quarterbacks are getting a fair break when it comes to the expectation of their maturation. They're still 22, 23, maybe 24 years old, and that's still a young man, and that's still a person that needs to grow. And I think we need to cut these guys a break sometimes. And remember, they are human.
David, I appreciate the call. I do not accept that Will Levis is a young quarterback. He'll be 26 in June. So, there are excuses or explanations for Will Levis and where he's at, but not a young quarterback. The player is 26 years old. He's not Anthony Richardson, who just last year turned legal drinking age. So I will accept some level of explanation for Levis, but not that one. Let's get Riley, and then we will continue this conversation with more of your phone calls coming up next. Hey, Riley.
Hey, I'm a first-time caller, a long-time listener. And first, I just want to start off saying y'all do a great job. Y'all keep it interesting and engaging. And just diving right into the game this weekend, I was there. And to be honest, I think your ratio, you said, is a little bit off.
Okay.
I was sitting in the lower bowl, and everybody was Vikings fans. It was crazy. I swore it was.
You think I'm too low on the ratio?
Oh, yeah. I think it was 80% Vikings, 20% Titans. and the PSL people around me, they had sold out to Vikings fans, and I was kind of disappointed in them. And I'm not going to get into the PSLs right now because the family and I gave an arm, a leg, and all of our organs to be able to be locked in, which is very unfortunate. But anyways, I think the team just has too much negativity surrounding them right now. And it's really hard to succeed in an environment where there's just constant negativity. And I get it. The team's not performing. We're paying thousands of dollars just to be able to go to these games, and they're not performing. I get it. I bleed blue. I get it. But we just have to stay positive and a little bit delusional and just hope the boys will pull through. And I saw a lot of positive things this weekend. And I also saw 3 teams out there, the Zebras.
Thank you for the call, Riley. Minute is what we give for your first-time caller. We appreciate you being a long-time listener, but minute on the clock is how that goes. I think there's some valid points there. I understand what your perspective is, but you can't. It's just an unrealistic ask to ask people to be positive about a 2-8 football team and hope that they'll pull through. But I understand what you're trying to say. All right, more of your phone calls coming up next. Last call for them. We'll update some polls. We'll get you out of here on a Monday. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Odd choice of song on a 10-point loss Monday, but that's fine. Welcome back to the show.
Vibes are higher. They're not high, but they're higher than they were.
Why? What drugs have you taken?
None. I'm in around the team, bud.
Why? What drugs have they taken? 615-737-1045 is the number. If you want to get involved, we'd be happy to have you. Last call for them before we update some polls. Let's go to Jack next. Hey, Jack.
Buck. Hey, Buck. To me, you can't roll over 90% of the coaching staff, 2/3 of the team, trade off your biggest locker room leaders, and expect to be meeting the Kansas City Chiefs in 3 months in the playoffs. They might have caught lightning in a bottle, but it's not going to happen. It's a rebuild, big time. And as far as complaining about out-of-town fans in the seats, the Titans are going to sell those seats no matter who's going to sit in them. And if people here don't like it, then they need to take themselves down there to the games in person so they can't sell them to somebody else.
Oh, sure. No, Jack, you're spot on. I mean, but here's the thing. Like, nobody was expecting them to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, but we all expected them to win. What was the Vegas win total, 6.5?
Yeah, I think the reasonable expectation for Titans fans, I like the 500 mark, around there, like that 8 and 9 type of conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
be in the playoff picture throughout the course of the year.
Be in the graphic.
But we talked about also preseason, how rare it is for teams to make this many changes in free agency and sort of cobble a roster together that way and find that immediate success. And that is kind of holding true. That doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't happen in football. Apparently it doesn't happen in hockey.
It's really
based on what these things are happening. But
it's really hard to win if you do not have a foundation built out of the draft on your roster. It is incredibly hard to win if you don't have that. They don't have that right now. They're trying to build it.
Well, but a part of the foundation, again, not to rehash the conversation, but a part of that foundation was the quarterback that they drafted.
Yes.
So,
right.
Something to keep in mind.
That's what I'm saying.
As to why
they don't have it because they've drafted so poorly over the last few years. Most of that, John Robinson. And yeah, Will Levis has had a lot to do with that.
Okay, I think most people, when they hear that, hear you saying, oh, it's John Robinson's fault, where I'm looking at the current administration that drafted this quarterback and saying, while he's making progress here, and you don't have to be 100% in or out on him yet, we are starting to get to the point where, Andre Dillard is the worst decision that this administration has made. And then you get into the Will Levis, or is Peter Skoronski actually going to be worthy of the 11th overall pick? All those conversations start when it goes this badly. Let's go to Tom next.
Buck?
Yeah.
I have a question for you, and you're a very pragmatic guy. Here's the question. Are the Titans uncoachable, or is it just that the coach can't coach?
I appreciate
That's my question.
Well, thank you for the call, Tom. I appreciate it. I don't think anybody on that roster to be uncoachable, but you do find out what guys' ceilings are, and they may not be what you expected them to be. Yeah? Because there are things that the offense does better now than they did in Chicago in week 1, right? That does matter. You have some players that are terrible on this roster. Nicholas Petit-Frere continues to be, or was, a starting right tackle yesterday. He should no longer be allowed to start at right tackle. He is terrible. I don't believe him to be uncoachable. I just think he's bad. I don't think the coaching staff gets a pass because their job was to come in here and improve the product. The product is significantly worse. But I don't think that you should be out entirely on a group of people who are doing their respective jobs, be they Colt Anderson, Denard Wilson, or Brian Callahan, who is ultimately responsible for the product. They are also learning as they go, and I do think that you are seeing some adjustments there. Now, you can be out on one or in on another or wait and see on all of them, however you want to determine that. I just don't think that it's the extreme that Tom has presented there.
Callahan is meeting with the media, confirming that Jack Gibbons had surgery today on his leg, and he's done for the year, and Tajay Spears in concussion protocol.
Okay, because he did not come back into that game, but that did not necessarily mean that Tajay had a concussion, but that would be an affirmation of the concussion situation for Tajay. So hopefully both of those players get well as soon as humanly possible. Polls, please.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the most trusted dealer in the South. Whose stock is up on the Titans after yesterday? Andrew says Callahan, seeing that fire from him, he cares, and you love to see it. Darius says Levis. And Daryl Baker gets a shout out here, the former Colts corner that has played some good football for the Titans.
He was in particular one snap in the end zone against Justin Jefferson where he was able to break that up. That's big boy defense.
Yeah.
And to the credit of Brownlee and Baker, they've held their own, if not been excellent, right?
Whose stock is down on the Titans after yesterday? Jordan says negative stock on any right tackle or the right side of the line. It's embarrassing. No positive signs at all, he says.
Agreed.
A lot of other people saying stock down on the refs. Does Will Levis's progress mean something to you? 72% say yes, we're still evaluating. 28% say nah, he ain't it.
I think that's about right. I think that's a fair breakup of the percentages. That's about what it should be, I would think.
And what percentage do you give the Vols? What percentage chance, I should say, do you give the Vols to make the college football playoff after Saturday's loss? DJ says slim to none. Taylor says 33%. Swagger Vol says 50%. Orange Stormtrooper is going 15%. I'd put it at that 45% sort of mark. You need some help, right? You could use a Notre Dame loss to Army. You could use Indiana getting blown out by Ohio State. We'll go over the scenarios throughout the course of the week.
Yes. Those are polls? Yeah. All right. Very good. That's the show. Brian Callahan's press conference coming up next.